Hi, this is Tanya Gioia, and I'm a relationship recovery life coach, and I'm delighted to be part of this group of the warmest, nicest, friendliest life coaches. And I want to share a little bit about my story, and I'm going to pick up in the middle because I think that's where most of us begin to figure this out. So I was about 6 years into a marriage. I was leaving every morning, early in the morning, to walk my dog, to pray, and to cry. And I had a newborn and an almost 3 year old. And I walked every morning to walk with God out in the open because we lived on 20 acres. And I would kneel and I would pray and I would cry and I would lament what was happening in my life. I finally prayed this prayer: God, I am too weak to move myself. I need you to move me. What had been happening is my husband, who had been a long time marijuana user, had begun to drink, and he hadn't been able to make it upstairs. He'd come in, crash on the couch, and never make it upstairs. And even our friends, who were somewhat heavy drinkers, said, "What's wrong? What's happening?" I had been in Al-Anon for a long time, but I hadn't really worked the steps. I hadn't really moved forward. And I just didn't know what to do but to walk and pray and cry. And then God moved. 5 days before Christmas, after an office Christmas party, we went through the whole structure. Running up and down the stairs, being really angry with each other, yelling, screaming, crying. My husband was very drunk, and I was very scared. My children, thankfully, were asleep. I had brought them home from the sitters thinking if I got home before him, I could just go to bed, the children could just go to bed, and all would be okay. If you've had those thoughts, you know how frightening that is. You know how scary that is. Well, it ended with the police, a separation, restraining orders, 5 days before Christmas for my 3 and 5 year olds. And we spent the Christmas holidays with some dear, dear friends. That's when my prayer got serious. That's when my whole being got serious. I couldn't any longer dabble in Al-Anon. I needed help. I needed community. I needed people to walk beside me. I no longer had a full-time job. I was never planning to be that woman who couldn't care for her own children financially. I have high-powered degrees. I've had jobs. I'm well-spoken. But here I was with a very large house, 25 chickens, 2 horses, a dog, and 2 kids. It was too much. It was so too much. And I remember one night, one cold January night, going out to feed the horses after I had put the kids to bed and looking up at the Milky Way in the mountains of Colorado, and the sheer beauty just overwhelmed me. And that's when God began to give me scriptures just for me. And the first thing that he told me was, this battle is not for you to fight. Take your position, stand still, and see the victory of the Lord on your behalf. That's 2 Chronicles 20:17. What I had been doing for so many years, and maybe like so many of you, is I had been holding it together. I could handle it all. I could handle everything. I could manage the kids, the books, the horses, the chickens, and by the end of it, we had grown to 400 chickens. I could manage it all and work part-time and make love to my husband and be available and go to meetings and go to church and maintain all our social status. It was on that cold night in January where I kneeled in the snow and said, Lord, I can't do it anymore. I had asked him to move in a mighty way, and he had, which had left me what I felt was more alone. But when he gave me that verse, I realized how much I had been in the way, how much I had been taken care of, how much I had tried to change and move the situation myself. And that's when I stopped. That's when I let go. That's when I went in and stoked the wood stove and fell asleep. And that's what my days were like for months and months and months. Is God kept me so busy caring for my children, caring for going back to work, caring for the land that we were on, that by 9 o'clock I was asleep in front of the fire almost every night. It was such a blessing. Our story continues with 23 months of separation, with a lot of hard work and therapy, with a lot of church friends and family that walked beside us, with a lot of women who came beside me with scriptures of their own to share with me. And that's when God began to grow me. God began to show me that I needed to grow as much as my husband needed to grow as he was in recovery, that I needed to be ready for when he returned, that I needed to have myself under control. Because you see, I am a codependent. I struggle with anger and depression. I caused a lot of issues in the marriage too. It wasn't just one-sided. It wasn't just the chemical dependent. So as I'm talking to you, I'm going to tell you the happy ending. We remarried almost 2 years later in a very private ceremony, had a wonderful catered supper for 6 afterward, and celebrated. And we've been celebrating 2 anniversaries ever since. The one when we started our marriage in sickness that both of us came to the marriage with. Me needing to cling on to a man, and him still using to cover his feelings. And then we do the other celebration of our freedom. It was our blood, Jesus's blood, and the blood of the community that put us back together. And we got red stones in our rings just for that. So if you are a person who is interested in looking at yourself, in seeing your part in what is happening in your relationship, and it doesn't have to be chemical addiction. It can be any hurt, habit, or hang up that's causing you distance or pain or not bringing you the fulfillment you want in your marriage or your family. It can also be working through how you deal with your children, how you come to them, how you show yourself to them. Because in God, we have the greatest Father. We have the person who can father. And that's what I turned to when my children were fatherless for those years prior to the separation. My husband really stepped in when he got sober, but prior to the separation, they were fatherless. The addiction was absorbing all his time. And so I turned to the greatest Father. And when I did that, he gave me this other verse. And this is often overlooked in the armor of God. We're told to put on the armor of God to protect ourselves against the enemy. But we're also told, therefore, put on the full armor of God, so that when the day of evil comes, you may be able to stand your ground. And after you have done everything, to stand and stand firm. So I firmly believe that heroes are often the people who stand firm. Heroes are the people who stay and do the dishes and wash the clothes and take care of their children and also take care of themselves. God never meant for me to be miserable. He never meant for my husband or my children to be miserable. But I did have to get out of the way for him to move. And if that is something you're interested in learning how to do, then I am the coach for you. We can walk through where your life is now, where you would like your life to be, and how you might get there. And guess what? You don't have to have your partner on board to do that. You can begin the work by yourselves. Because when my husband began the work in earnest, I really needed to get myself ready. The fact is, most marriages end in divorce not before sobriety, but after. Because nobody knows who they are. The family's not prepared for this new person who has all kinds of range of emotions they didn't have. And especially the wife is not prepared for shifting roles of responsibility. We keep thinking we want him to be the leader. We keep thinking we want him to take over. But we've been doing this for so long. We've been managing the household, the finances, the kids, everything for so long. And then somebody walks in who looks like our husband and wants to be the leader and be the full adult. And we say, wait a minute. I've been doing this for a long time and I know how it works. What gives you the right to come and take over? But then we need to check our heart. Isn't that what we wanted? We wanted our full partner back. We wanted our friend back. We wanted our lover back. How does that happen? So as you look at all these wonderful recovery coaches in this program, I would love to talk with you if this is where you are. So I am a Christian recovery coach. I do base my life in that. If that is your goal and your mission, then take a discovery call with me. And you can find out more about my husband and I and our story over at thejoyousfamily.com. So there's all kinds of articles over there. You can read our story. You can look at who we are. But if you want to hear more from us, we have been doing a Sober on Purpose podcast. Sober on Purpose for His Purpose podcast for the last 6 months. And that's where you can really hear the dynamic of what's going on in our marriage. And you can see who we are as people, because we want to walk beside you like others have walked beside us. It's part of our mission and our service to leave a legacy not only for our children, but for all the people we can reach and their children. So I really look forward to seeing you. And if you are watching this on Friday, the 24th, it is fresh. And I will be there to answer as many questions as possible. If you are watching this later in the Memorial Day week, I will get to you on Monday or Tuesday, because guess what? We didn't just normalize and stabilize our marriage. We moved to growth and thriving. And so for Memorial Day weekend, all 4 of us are headed out with dirt bikes and friends and to have an excellent time. No alcohol or drugs involved, and no anger, no fuss, no crazy mommy at the same time. So if you want to stop being the monster mom and the monster wife, I'm the recovery coach for you. Thank you so much for watching. And remember, it's at thejoyousfamily.com, Sober on Purpose podcast at Apple Podcasts, I think it is right now. And we also have a couple other things going on, so you can check the website and see that, and you can see more about my coaching there. I look forward to talking to you, and I will do my best to get back to all of you by the end of Tuesday the 28th. If you haven't heard from me, you PM me right away, and you can find me on Facebook at thejoyousfamily.com. Look forward to talking to you.